Whatever it is, when you finish, it's just kind of a natural thing that the first thing that you do is you kind of just step back and you look at it and you examine it. And if it's worthy, if you like it, if it's good, you share it with those that you love. Now we find in Genesis chapter 1, God, who occupies this space, also made this space. He made everything. And in Genesis 1:31, at the completion of God's week of work, I gotta breathe, you know. He stood back and he looked everything over, and he saw all that he made was very good. So the natural thing is the next step would be you share it. So God shares this with us. He shared everything that He has made and with us, and but that's not everything that God has ever done for us or is doing for us. God does something for you every day, whether you realize it or not. Every day is given to you by God. But I want to look at one other thing that God has done, and we look into John 14:2, which is the end of getting toward the last days of Christ on earth, which I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about in the weeks coming as it's getting close to Easter. But in John 14:2, it says, in my Father's house are many mansions. This is the King James Version. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And then in the NLT, it says, there's more than enough room in my Father's home. In the NIV, it says that in my Father's house, there are many rooms. And then this morning, I just looked up, where did I write that down at? In the NSB, it says, it calls it dwelling places. Well, I could say that, you know, it says rooms or dwelling places, but I'm going to tell you, if God builds me a room or a dwelling place, it's a mansion. To me, it's a mansion. So that brings me to my next point. You know, what is a mansion? You know, what do you think of when you think of a mansion? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Biltmore Mansion. I don't know if you've ever been there, but you can visit the Biltmore Mansion. It was built in the late 1800s by a man by the name of George Washington Vanderbilt. Actually, he started construction in 1890. Construction was about 6 years, although construction is never done on a house. He was a bachelor, nonetheless, when he built this house, and it did work. He got a wife a couple years later. Spent the rest of his life changing the house, of course. Now, it's interesting that, to me, it's interesting that he was born in 1862. He died in 1914, 51 years of age. Had this big mansion. It's still here. He's not. Took none of it with him. It's all here. But just a little bit about the mansion. The mansion was opened in 1895 at Christmas time. Now, this was Christmas Eve, 1895. It was opened. The estate at that time was 125,000 acres. Today it's only 8,000 acres. The rest of it is the Piqua National Forest. But just a little bit about this. Remember, this is 1890s. This house was complete with electricity, water, all the amenities of today. It had 250 rooms, 65 fireplaces. It has 3 kitchens: a kitchen for breakfast, a kitchen for dinner, and it has a bakery. They didn't eat lunch. That was something of that time. Inside the house, there was a swimming pool, an indoor swimming pool, a billiards room, a library with 10,000 books, and his private study, it has another 2,000 books. That's what they did a lot. They did a lot of reading. It also had an indoor bowling alley. Yes, and you can visit this place, but it's fairly expensive anymore. I believe I looked up the other day, it's like $75 to go through this, but you can spend all day there. I mean, we spent several days. Jackie and I have been there 6 times probably. It wasn't $75 then, but anyhow, it is quite a place when you consider it was built clear back in 1890. They have these tapestries that are hung on the wall. Now, I'm a pretty simple man. I didn't know what a tapestry was. They was talking about tapestries. I'd ask my wife. It's a rug. It hangs on a wall. But, you know, it's a handmade sewn rug. These people have traveled all over the world to get these things. They're worth thousands or millions of dollars. I don't know, but to me, it's just a rug hanging on a wall. There's 43 bathrooms in this house. Yes. And in an exercise room, there are 35 bedrooms plus the servants' quarters. It's a total of 178,926 square feet, equivalent of 89 2,000 square foot homes. This was just a house. We could go on and on about the barns and everything. I mean, the barns are so nice that there are servants' quarters in the barns. I mean, it's a brick barn. It is really something else. But now we're going to talk about what I really would like to talk about is God's house. In Revelations 21:16, we read that the Apostle John was on the island of Patmos, and an angel came to him because God is always making something else for us. God wanted us to see this, so he revealed this to us through an angel to John. And God's house, God's mansion, the New Jerusalem, it was measured, and it was found to be square, as wide, as long as it was high. Now, in the NIV, it says it's 12,000 stadia, so it's 12,000 stadia long, wide, and tall. Now, a stadia is a measurement that they use by using a telescope. It's about 600 feet or some crazy thing like that. But a little simpler, in the King James, it's 12,000 furlongs. You probably heard of a furlong. That's in horse racing. It's 1/8 of a mile. So depending on whose numbers you go by, it's 14 or 1,500 miles. I go by the 1,500 mile because most different readings I have says 1,500 miles. So 1,500 miles wide, 1,500 miles long, 1,500 miles high. Okay, now we're going to do a little math here. If you can read this. There's 5,280 feet in a mile times 1,500 miles. So this is, bring it into perspective, it's 7,920,000 feet long and wide and high. 7,920,000 times 7,920,000 is the square feet. That is in God's house. See, I thought I had that. I'll tell you that number, but I thought I wrote it down here. I'm going to go to the next one and see. No. But anyhow, that is, multiply those together, it's 62,726,400,000,000 square feet. That's on one floor. I don't know how many floors are in heaven or in God's house because it doesn't tell us the floors that are in heaven. But this still might bring up a question. Is heaven big enough? Is that big enough? I mean, for all the saints of all time, for all over. So I did a lot of comparisons, and I'm not going to share those with you. It's kind of boring, actually, except for I'm going to tell you one. The tallest building in the world today is in Dubai. It's 2,717 feet tall. God's mansion is, not by coincidence, is 2,717 times taller. That's how tall it is. I thought that was pretty amazing. This is probably going to be a short message. Sorry. Now I'm going to tell you about the size, if God's house is large enough. Of course, we know it is, but let's look at this. Let's look at Noah and the ark. Now, in Genesis 14:6 is 14 to 16, it tells about Noah and the ark. Now, God tells Noah to build a large boat. Now, if God stopped with telling Noah to build a large boat, Noah would have been in trouble. I mean, he would still be today figuring out every animal that there is, how much space they needed, how much space he needed, how much provisions to put in the boat, because Noah didn't know where he was going. Noah didn't know how long he was going. How do you pack for something like that? And to get all the animals and to get them to the place that they belong, that would be nearly impossible. But God brought the animals. The animals knew where to go. The animals all had a space. They all had plenty of space. The provisions were there, and nowhere do I read that anybody was starving on this voyage. Now, I have heard it say that this boat had no way of steering. There was no rudders or anything on the boat, so it went wherever God took the boat. I've heard people say that it had to withstand these rough seas. Well, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. There's nothing in there, but my belief is it was a calm sea. It was flat the whole time, a gentle breeze that pushed it where it needed to go, enough for ventilation, because what would be the purpose of putting them through a rough sea? There was none. So I'm sure it was a smooth sailing. You can ask God when you get there if you want to, but I'm going to go with it was a smooth sailing. Okay. Oh, this is a picture of the ark that is in Kentucky, the replica of the ark. But you can see how massive it is. We have visited the ark, and it is really well constructed, and they constructed it as best they could according to the Word of God, and it's really amazing, and there was enough room for all the animals, 2 of each kind, on this boat. Every animal you can think of is there, plus ones I never heard of. Now, okay, so the outcome of the ark, the size, the plan was perfect. And this is God's plan. Now, heaven, or the New Jerusalem, which will not stay where it is. There'll be a new earth and a new heaven, and it will be wherever. But it's going to be completely new, completely different. So I don't know the size of the new earth or anything like that, but God put all these animals on the boat. I missed that one. And then that takes us to heaven. Now I go to a lot of races, and when I go to a race, it's like Kevin said, there's first and there's second. Well, I never know, I don't remember who got second place. I don't really ever check to see what the prize money is for second place. They don't advertise that. They advertise first place. Nobody wants to be second place. You don't want to be second place. You want the grand prize that God has made for you and made for me. Now, now we can read in Revelations chapter 21 all about the new heaven and the new earth. And this was John's account after the angel came to him. And he said, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea." But there is a river that runs through heaven, right? So there's going to be some water. "And I saw a holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven, made ready as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Behold, the tabernacle of God is among them, and he will dwell among them.'" Now, you can read all about this, and it's really, really good reading, and I suggest you read it because I think that you got to know what your prize is and what your goal is and what you're going after. I mean, but of all the things, of all the walls are 216 feet thick. Gates are made of one pearl. All kinds of gems and jewelry that I've never heard of. So I don't know. I have no recollection of what that would look like, but I'm sure that it's going to be something to see. It's a place that you want to go. But of all the beauty and all of the amenities of heaven, I got to say that, first of all, this is God's house. So who do you think lives in God's house? I mean, God may occupy all this space, but God has a house. Who lives there? Don't you want to be there? Jesus is there. God is there. We have brothers and sisters. We have children there. I mean, why would you want to choose anything else? I mean, even if hell wasn't real, why wouldn't you want to go here? I mean, hell is real though, so don't think it's not. But I'm just saying, of all the places to go, this is the place I want to go. Amen. Now, I know this is going to be short today, but I tell you all of this, and we could read to make it longer, but I'm not going to do that. I tell you all this for one point only. If you were George Washington Vanderbilt and you built a mansion in Asheville, North Carolina, 35 bedrooms, you know all the amenities of it. You send out the invitations for everybody to come and to be at your mansion on Christmas Eve. What would it have been like if nobody responded, if nobody showed up, or if just one person didn't show up? I mean, you've invited the people that you love, the people that supposedly love you. What if they didn't respond? What if they did not come? How would that have been for you? How would you feel about that? Now, God has sent you an invitation, and He sent me an invitation. I've answered that invitation. I'm going. Definitely going. Have you answered that invitation? Are you going to go? And if you have answered that invitation, like I have, like probably most of you have, is your neighbor going? Is your cousin going? Is your brother going? Who's going to deliver that invitation? Somebody needs to deliver their invitations. That's us. That's our job. So we need to be busy about delivering the invitations. I just want you to understand that no response is a response. So with that, I close. I don't really have anything else. When I practiced it, it was longer. It's funny, I probably spent